Hello, in this video, I'm going to explain the doctrine of discovery. What is it and how did it start? What were its consequences? So first of all, the doctrine of discovery is a doctrine, which means kind of like a system of beliefs or ideas, and it's linked to discovery. So think of like Christopher Columbus showing up in the New World and discovering the Americas, even though people already lived there. So this really gets to the question of how did European colonizers and explorers feel that it was okay for them to discover and then claim the lands of other people? And really, what this is based on is a social hierarchy based on race and religion. So, what this is based on is again our pyramid, a belief that European Christians were superior to literally everybody else in the world. So, just because these people were European and Christians, they believed that they were chosen by God to control the rest of the world. So, other people that were not European Christians counted as everybody else. So they really were seen as not being equal to them, that they were somehow less than these people, and that they could get away with treating them as if they were really not humans, just like them. So again, how this would work is a European Christian explorer would go and find an area that no other European Christian powers had claimed yet. So this is like when Christopher Columbus showed up. He shows up to the shore, he sees the land, he shows up, plants the flag, and says, I claim this land for Spain. But then there's the native people being like, hey, we already live here. But he's being like, aha, but you're not a European Christian, so you don't matter. So no, we discovered it for European Christians. And then this is what all the other countries would do too. England would show up to what would become New York and Virginia and say, we claim this for England. France would come over and see Louisiana and say, we claim this for France. And then they respected each other's claims. The European Christians were like, oh, well, France said dibs on that. England says dibs on that. But all the people living there, the indigenous native people, are kind of like, oh, well, they don't matter. Ignore them because they're not European Christians. And therefore, we can discover their lands. And because they're living there, we don't treat them as human beings. They might live there, but they don't have the right to their own lands. They can live there, but they don't have the right to actually control them. And so this belief that these people could not own their own lands is based on racism, only because they said that they made a judgment on their way of life, saying because they're not like us, because they have a different culture, because they have a different religion, they're somehow less. They were sometimes used really bad language, calling them like soulless devils that don't even have a soul, that they're not humans like us, that they're essentially agents of the devil and we have to control them. And this belief in the doctrine of discovery that Europeans could show up and just claim the land, ignore the native people, becomes the foundation for the entire United States and a lot of other countries too. Being like, yeah, there were people living there, but because you're not a European Christian, your claim to your own land doesn't matter. And this is really racist, foundationally a belief where, again, going back to the Louisiana Purchase, England and France and the United States only deal with each other because they were white European Christians. They mattered. They were people. But those native people, no, they weren't seen as people. So the Louisiana Purchase, United States deals with France, gives them the land. They didn't ask the people who already lived there. They didn't ask them what they thought because they, based on the doctrine of discovery, believed that they were less than them and that the right of Europeans to discover their lands gave them a higher claim to the land than the indigenous people who already lived there. This is really foundationally racist. And so the belief that the United States has the right to the land and not the indigenous people have the right to their own lands is a racist belief called the Doctrine of Discovery.